Hi, you've clicked onto today's tropical tidbit for Wednesday, September 4th, and here in the Atlantic quickly we have an area of disturbed weather in the southwestern Gulf associated with a tropical wave that came across the Yucatan Peninsula, and this will be a broad area of low pressure that may have a chance to spin up similar to Fernan before it comes ashore in Mexico here. So if you're in Mexico, something to potentially watch over the next few days. The models aren't super excited about developing something significant in here, but this area will remain unstable for the next few days, and so this area should be watched. But the main story for the next 5 to 7 days will be Tropical Depression 7, newly designated here south of Puerto Rico. This was upgraded just a couple of hours ago. And here it is close up, and we see much more widespread convection today in general, and a lot more of this tropical wave to the northeast as well. So it's getting its act together here in terms of instability and really getting some of that heat released with outflow coming out now to the south and to the north. If we go underneath of all this, if we go to first the mid-levels, the radar out of San Juan shows a nice rotation here with a mid-level center to the south with this bomb of convection that you see right here at the end of the loop. And the recon plane flew in under this today, and what it found was that the mid-level center was here, but the low-level center was kind of strung out and ill-defined off to the southwest here with a large area of light and variable winds and high pressures near 1,010 millibars for most of today. On the final pass, it found a little bit more of a surface reflection underneath this mid-level center and a little bit of a wind core here with perhaps weak tropical storm force winds in those green and dark blue colors. Right near those thunderstorms. So it may be trying to reform its center under the mid-level circulation and become stacked with it. And if it does that, it will be able to start intensifying. But it's a pretty weak depression and fairly ill-defined right now, despite how nice it looks on radar and satellite. So until those pressures start falling, this will remain a fairly weak depression overall. But it is going to very slowly here start moving off towards the northwest. And we see on the radar it's actually moving pretty slowly, not moving a lot right now. It will very slowly start to make its way towards this passage of water between Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. And if we look at the water vapor imagery right now, we have this trough coming down over the northeast, and what's happened over the last few days is the tropical depression has had to deal with this wave off to the northeast, and this has been really slowing the progress of this system. I expected it to be a little bit more over here, getting towards Hispaniola by now a couple of days ago, but this wave has really slowed its progress, and as a result, this trough now on water vapor is starting to break down this low-level ridge ahead of it, and so as a result, this is now coming up a little bit farther to the east. Instead of over here, it's coming up over here. And so this will be now coming up and possibly even avoiding most of Hispaniola here. However, it still could become tangled with these mountains, and it's always a little bit unpredictable when these systems are in proximity because due to frictional effects, even if the center of the system is offshore, sometimes it can get jerked westward by these mountains banging the circulation around, especially these weaker systems. And this wave here is rotating around and will be trying to merge with this as it comes northwest, and the interplay between these two features will be interesting, and exactly where the center of this storm ends up in a couple of days could still be a little bit more uncertain than it usually is. So we'll have to see exactly where it ends up here and if it gets tangled with Hispaniola at all. But these two things will probably eventually combine into a smaller system and get more energy bundled in one place, and this could try strengthening into a moderate to strong tropical storm once it clears the islands here. Mainly a rain threat for Puerto Rico and Hispaniola, where flood warnings and watches are out, and that will be taken seriously as this is moving slowly, and this rain can really pile up in here, so that will be a dangerous threat for them. But if we talk about the future track of this system now, we have this trough coming down, weakening this ridge, so this will be coming up now and ending up somewhere in here over the next 3 to 4 days, moving very slowly. Now this trough is leaving, but getting immediately replaced with another one behind it, and this is the European 500 millibar out to day 3. So this is now not the one that you just saw over here. This is another one that comes in behind it in 3 days, and our system will be here somewhere north of Hispaniola, assumedly, by this time. Now if we go out to day 4, we see the trough is still dug in here, and the ridge is gone, so this is probably going to gain a little bit of latitude in here as it gets to the northeast of the Bahamas. But if we go out to day 5, notice the trough starts leaving, and you see it's trying to leave a little bit of a something back here, kind of a trough split feature, and this is where the depression is on the European. And if we go out to day 6, we see that the trough is completely gone and the ridge builds back and connects over the eastern United States, and we have a trough split piece down here. The actual depression on the European model is up here west of Bermuda, and it actually ends up taking this out here around the ridge because there's another reinforcing trough coming in behind that doesn't let this bridge get really strong. But you can see the piece back here, and it's always a little bit of a worry that in a pattern like this where the trough leaves and leaves something behind, it can help pinwheel a storm back towards the US coast. But in this kind of a pattern now, it's coming up a little bit farther to the east, and if it actually gets by Hispaniola without being held back too much, then you're asking it to spend 3 or 4 days trying to not go out to sea and then have another trough coming in to reinforce. Even if it does come back towards the US coast, it would have to make it there in 24 to 48 hours before another lane would open up to the northeast to take it out anyway, just a little bit closer to the coast. So right now this pattern, the way it's looking, seems to favor that this eventually finds its way out to sea here, but could threaten Bermuda on its way out. And this is the current NHC track, bringing this again kind of through the passage between Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, and then slowly on up to the south of Bermuda. And I like how they kept it slower than the HWRF and GFDL models and the GFS, which feed this back way too much and throw it off to the northeast very fast. The issue with this situation is that if it can hang back here, if it gets tangled up with Hispaniola's mountains a little bit more than expected, or moves a lot slower or a little bit farther west in here during days 3 and 4, then you know it might try to get farther west in here. Can it affect the United States? I would use the word doubtful in this situation, but it's not completely off the table if this happens to hang back so much that the ridge does build in when this trough leaves. And then if you have this up here and the storm is here instead of here, then we might have an issue. But I think it's doubtful that this actually makes it back to the US coast, more likely to go out. But keep an eye on it just in case. It is rather unpredictable to see what these storms might do as they're dealing with Hispaniola and trying to mill around in here, especially with a tropical wave trying to merge with it. The center of the storm could end up anywhere in here during the next 3 days. So we'll keep an eye on it, but right now it seems fairly likely to find its way out eventually, and Bermuda might have to watch this. So we'll keep an eye on it. Has the potential to strengthen a bit after it gets north of the islands, and could even try to make a run at a hurricane if it doesn't get sheared too much as that trough comes down. So we'll keep an eye on it during the next few days. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for watching.